Okay, today I'm going to go over modeling a hand, and I'm going to be showing you the techniques that I use to model a hand. Your number one reference should be right in front of you. Uh, you have two of them, and if you don't have reference in your hands, then I guess you're going to have to go on the internet and see if you can find a picture, take a picture of your own hands, of someone else's hands, and you can model straight into a picture. What I'm going to be doing is modeling straight out of looking at my hand as reference and showing you the technique. By no means does this mean you can't load an image plane to get the exact size and shape and all that kind of stuff. What I'm going to do is show you the process that I would use to still create my hand, even if I did have an image plane in there, or if I'm just going off of the reference of my hand. There are certain things that you have to remember. Every hand is different. Some fingers are shorter than their palms. Some palms are smaller than their longer fingers. So you really have to judge it by your own. I'm going to be using my own hand as reference. So I have a very wide palm with shorter fingers. Got kind of bare hands. And so I'll be going off of that reference. Again, this is just one technique. This is the technique that I use, and you're free to use this. Learn this first. If you're in one of my classes, if you're just viewing this video, then it's just offering another technique of how I go about creating a low poly to high poly mesh hand. All right, so the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my standards of using my primitives. So I'm going to go ahead and create a box. And as usual, I'm going to make sure that everything's zeroed out. Zeroed out. Make sure I know which direction is front. The Z, or blue arrow, is always facing front in Maya. X is left to right, and Y, which is green, is up and down. And the first thing I need to know is I know I need 4 fingers facing forward, so I'm going to make the height 1, maybe 1.5. So I'm just starting off with a square that's 5 by 5 by 1.5 inch tall. I could go a little bit taller than that or shorter than that. It just depends on how I want to start off with, because you're really going to be looking at your hand to get the final size. Next thing I'll do is I'm going to actually do a split subdivision on the height, just 1. I'm just trying to basically kind of make a nice hemisphere line. Okay, so from that point, I'm going to see what's the best thing next to start with, and I'm going to be using a low poly cylinder, and I want to center right on the middle of one section. Now, my belief is if you model one really good finger, then you'd be able to use that and clone it over multiple times instead of spending time on each finger individually to create it. I'm going to make a clone and copy, and that way I can adjust the individual finger to fit the other fingers, but still only put the work into one finger. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of markers here by using my cut face tool. And this is just so I have a place to zero out my cylinder. Look at my front view, cylinder, and I'm going to hold V down so that way I snap to vertice to center out from here. It doesn't matter the size and height. I'm going to fine tune that. And I'm going to start off with a 6-sided cylinder. Taking the radius just underneath the outside size. Now right there, I'm looking and I can see now that my height probably would be better if I started off with 1 inch height. Or maybe 1 1/4. That's a little bit better. Go at 0.6. There we go. All right, so that's my starting point. I also know that I want it to be taller. Now for me, my fingers are shorter, so when I'm using this, I'm just actually going to bring this up and position it to see how far down my finger goes on my palm. And like I said, I have very wide palms. Uh, so for my proportion, it's like that. Now some of you guys have real long spider fingers. You might have more of a 1-to-1 proportion, or even just a slightly smaller. But for myself, that's about my proportion of my finger distance down the hand. So it's a little bit longer. And I'm going to snap to snap. I'm going to change the insert point, the access point, by hitting the insert key, holding V and snapping it to the back. That way, I can go ahead and hold V and snap it all the way to the front and down to the middle. On the height, I know I need 2 subdivisions, so I'll just go ahead and start with that. And that's going to be my beginning phases of making this finger. Again, this is my technique. Some might use a similar technique, some might use a totally different technique. There's not only one way to make a hand, but this is what I'm showing you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those because I want these to be quads, so the polyflow goes all the way through. And I'm just going to keep looking back and forth at my finger to see how big the different segments are. Now, on my finger, the first segment is actually, they're not totally all even. My first segment is a little bit shorter than the middle section. And just going to set up my size here. I'm also going to go ahead and pull up scale and size to get the front of the finger rounding. Okay, I don't want to rely on this. Okay, I don't want to rely on that. I want to create my own roundness on the front. Scale that in, and that'll create a curve for my finger there. Okay, so one thing you have to know for animation, we need to have these so it can bend in properly, the finger can bend. We need to have our polygon flow going wider at the top of where the knuckle would be and smaller at the bottom. That way they can pinch in together to create our fingers bending. So for animation purposes, this is really important. I go wider at the top for the knuckle, closer in. This will allow these teeny tiny polygons to squeeze in together when bending the finger. Go ahead and select all the way around in the center rings, and I'm just going to bring it up a tad. And I'll look at it real quick, and we can see already a little bit of pinching in for the finger. So I'm going to take those and make it a little bit more defined so that it really has a nice crease where our finger bend is. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit, push it in, pushing that in. I'm not bringing it down as far because the offset also helps make that crease a lot stronger. You can see now we're starting to get our creases where our fingers should bend at. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the fingernail. And there's a lot of different approaches you could use. Again, this is mine. It works for me. I like the way it looks. But basically, when I see bad fingernails, it's usually because it doesn't really look like the nails coming out from underneath the skin. And so this is the technique that I like to use. It's not perfect at first. You do have to keep working it and working it to get it to look great. But it's a starting point. So I go ahead and trying to look about my fingernails about half the size of the top digit. So I'm averaging from the front of here to here. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and switch to face mode. And I'm just going to scale in. I scale in once to pull it away so it's not trying to average for just all this side over here, but it's creating lines of separation. And I extrude and come in one more time, a little bit smaller. Now extrude again. So far there's been 2 extrudes, two that have just been a scale. The next one is one that's just going to push straight down in, about so big. And the second one's going to push down. It's going to rotate. And then push it up and back. What that's going to do is that's going to make it so that it'll look like, once I get it fine-tuned, like the fingernail is coming out from underneath the skin. So the next step right there is to pull the fingernail forward. Is I'm going to take my insert edge loop, run it right along here, and I'm going to grab the face here, extrude it out, scale, move it down, scale it in. Okay, again, this is going to have to be pushed a lot further. Again, this is low poly. I believe in making things low poly and getting the best shape possible, and then you can start manipulating and fine-tuning it to be more and more detailed. Okay, I like how everything's looking so far. Looking all right. All right, so the next step now is I'm going to create a line down the middle, which will help do a couple things. It'll help create a ridge for the bone to go down later on, and it'll also create some more polygons that will help me round out this fingernail even better. So, face mode, I'm going to select one, shift, and double click the second one. I'm going to hold Control key down, right click, go to where it says Edge Ring Utilities, and then to Edge Ring and Split. That gives me a nice cut perfectly down the center of those polygons. And now I can take those verts and round out the fingernail a little bit better. Round out the front of the fingernail a little bit better. Now take another look. The more I work it, the more it's going to start looking like a fingernail. The more subdivisions I add, the more geometry I add, it's just going to look better and better as I go along. One of the things I can do right away is we won't need the faces here. Wrong ones. There we go. We won't need those. Okay, so if you want to bend it, you can bend it now. I've been in the habit of bending it now, but I just saw a technique the other day that a student was using. I thought, hey, that's a pretty good idea. Why didn't I think of that? So you can, if you want to start getting it and getting a little bit more of a curved shape to begin with. I go to rotate, insert key, move, insert key, rotate a little bit down, insert key. Okay, so I'll get the finger a little bit of a natural bend already. That's one way you could do it. I'm gonna go ahead and try the next, the new way that I saw because it was pretty neat. I really liked how they did it. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the faces. Do the same thing. I'm just gonna start to create more shape. Okay, shape as I need it, polygons as I need it. All right. And a little bit more roundness to the top of there. All right, take a quick look. It's starting to look okay. And look at my finger here and taking some notice to a couple of things. One is it does taper off. Also going to start rounding some of these off a little bit more. Knuckle areas that I'll use later on. So just bringing this up, creating some definition and shape. Again, just shaping to get what I want it to look like. And that's one of the keys. There's tricks that you can use to get this to look a certain way, but really learning how to model well really has to do with how well you can manipulate the polygons into position to really get what you want out of this. Really get what you want out of your shape. The better are you at doing off, the better off a model you're going to become. Okay. So now, talk about adding wrinkle detail and stuff like that. Well, one thing I can do is I can add more resolution to this area. To bring up the knuckle more. Yeah, again, everything is just going to be fine-tuned, fine-tuned. A lot of times I'll start and like stop doing everything perfectly symmetrical just to give it uh, some more personality character. Don't always do that, but with some things, just a hair here and there will really help and benefit the overall look. Now, I prefer to keep working this um, by hand to really make this turn into something special, a real believable finger. But there are techniques where I can subdivide this up and have a lot more polygons to work with to get a smoother shape quicker. And then after you do that, you can go and kind of delete areas that you really don't need. So um, in certain directions that aren't as necessary, probably being able to skip every other row. So that's one technique that you can use. I'll probably take out this row, and delete both the vertices. And it does a pretty good job shaping. I'd say probably this one as well. I'm not going to really take any out from over here because that's where I want to create some creases um, in it anyway. So this will help me pop back to a much more lower poly state. This also giving me the ability now to kind of push that nail even further underneath. So that's one way that we can start to get a much more smooth shape out of it, much more uniformed shape. And then to start putting wrinkles in the hair, I can cut across um, I can either go throughout the whole finger by adding more edge loops through there, or I can keep it lower poly by kind of coming across just a couple areas. Right now my snap is on, so I don't care for that right this second. I want to be able to move it up and down any direction. So I'm going to take the 100% snapping tolerance off and do 10%. And again, I just got to there by double clicking the icon for the cut face tool. So by doing it this way, I'm keeping it lower. And by starting at different points and stopping at different points, it'll make it look a little bit more believable and not so uniform for the wrinkles. And what I do is I quickly will just add a quick edge loop in the middle, or slice where I need to slice. And now I can just simply double click on it, get rid of the ends, and pull them down. So I put some cuts in there for the tops of the finger knuckle area. I could put some more in there. Insert edge loop. Again, if I put this time into one good finger, um, it's going to speed up the process a lot. And there we have some wrinkles. And do the same thing to the other side. So really, there's not a whole lot to the finger other than really nailing the detail and getting it to look right. Okay, you put as many as you want, positioning where you want. Okay, it's entirely up to you. I can add another edge loop in there if I wanted. Now, there's also a trick. It's like, say I wanted to get this a certain shape. I've got all of these verts. If I try to sit there and scale this a little bit smaller, and then I wipe out the next group and a little bit smaller, and I try to taper, I can get results that I don't really care for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on my deformations, and of course they're not showing. So let's go under animation. If they're not showing on your palette, I don't know why. There's some kind of glitch right now. It's not showing. Um, yeah, so somehow my hotkeys aren't working right. Guess it wouldn't be Maya if it was perfect every time. So the other way I can just go is under animate, create deformations, open up lattice, 2 by 2 by 2. All right. Luckily, I was able to save this. It would have been a pain if it hadn't have saved. So luckily, everything was okay. File. I've double saved it just to make sure. And now I've got my hand going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and add my thumbnail. Okay, so go back out here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and show all. Well, there's my other finger. Now that's the one that's going to turn into a thumbnail. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it back. Looking at my thumb, trying to see about how far out it goes. And it's about that high as far as where it comes out from. And it's definitely, I'm looking at my hand, and I need to get the right angle. And I need to set my settings. Right now it's on local, which is perfect because I can rotate my thumb where I need it to be. But then I need it to get the right angle, but then I also needed to get it coming out from over this direction. So I'm going to go back to world so I can pivot and get the width open as well. So world. So that's going to be about where it opens up at. Okay, so this next technique I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of a wedge out here. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go to Edit, Wedge Face. I'm going to open it up. And now this is a little bit different. So now I need to see where I'm going to have it wedge out from. And so after I've gone to face mode, so it's object mode, face mode, select the faces, then I hold the right button down, I go to edges, hold shift, and grab which way they're going to wedge out from. And I want 2 divisions. It's going to go a 90-degree arc. It's probably going to be too much, so I'll probably do like a 45-degree and just start it out. That looks about right. Now I'm looking, I'm trying to see if that's about right as far as how far back this is coming out from. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out some new lines for this. And I'm going to bring out it from going from the top view. I use my planer slice. I want it to wedge out from maybe about there instead. I'm going to still go ahead and put some verts there. I'm going to grab that edge that goes around there because I don't need that many right there right now, so I'm going to get rid of those. And now I'll go ahead and do the wedge out again. Hold the right button down, go to edge, hold shift. Okay, maybe 40 degrees is better. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so again, I'm going to get my fingers best possible scenario for this. And now I'm just going to go ahead and move this into the right position. Trying to line up to make sure that I have a center line to deal with. Yeah, that's close enough. That's good. All right. I also want a little bit more separation here, so I'm going to go ahead and add some polys right there. That's a quad, but I don't want it like that, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish it off real quickly. Looks like I got a little bit of mess up over here. Just quickly weld those closed. Oops. One of those verts belongs. Yeah, let's double check. Something happened with the wedge. I'm going to go back a second. Oh, there it is. Didn't have that last piece right there. All those little tiny things make a difference. So I want to see what's going on with this real fast. It's doing something a little bit weird, so I'm just going to fix it on my own. Sometimes it's some of the things that we have to do. We just have to go in there and change things up. Okay, should be back on track now. Some of this stuff will have to be turned a little bit after you connect. All right, let's try this again. Go ahead and put this one in here. Now I'm going to get rid of parts I don't need there. And now I'm going to be moving these guys to their proper places. I'm just getting the thumb attached now. Everything's where it needs to be as far as the verts are concerned. So I'll go ahead and forgot to attach it first. Attach it. Weld or merge the verts. Okay, I'm just getting this to where it needs to be. Shaping it. So I'm just reshaping this thumb so I can animate in a good direction. Rather have the triangle go in this direction here. Quadding that out. And then running another edge loop through here for quads. This split right here will allow for better movement. I'm going to make this thumb part now a little bit fatter. Okay, and from this point now, it's just about making some cut areas to define the palm, redirecting polyflow a little bit. Got my hand just about the way I want it. Okay, so here I'm going to quickly make some edge loops in here. That's one way to do it. But I don't like the crease, and it's a lot more work, in my opinion, to do that way. So you can do the edge loop way of doing that. I personally like to just go in there manually because I don't go the whole way around. I go up to the half mark, which is the center finger line. Okay, almost done here. Just fine tuning is the most important part at this stage. Looking good. And then at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of route this out in here. And then one last one. That's an important one anyway. And there you have it. You can keep working it more and more, adding more definition for the bony joints. The more I pull these in. The more I'll define that area more. Yeah, it's just a matter of just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, moving things around. F5. If I subdivided this higher, then this would be my polyflow for it. Put the smoothing normals, soften normals, and there we have our hand. Again, you can take each one of these and fine tune these, giving them a little bit different of a shape. That way they each have a little bit more of a different look to them. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and that's making the hand.